Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you find yourself in this weird, wacky world of ours, and welcome to another exciting installment of Memories of the Cherry Blossom Throne. This evening's scene sees us high in a castle, veiled in mist and shrouded in darkness, in the Hida mountain range at the very center of Japan. Up the mountain slopes, past the crags, the gorges, the deep falls into valleys that have no name. Perched high upon the lonely peak, etched and carved into the stone, a fortress sits. This fortress was never carved by the hands of man. It was not hollowed out. The halls were not etched and carved via human machinations. No, the tortured kami, the elements that dug this place from the living stone, that erected its towers, put up its gates. This is a dark place. And yet, walking amidst the darkness, striding her way through the galleries lit by pale moonlight and candles, we have a veritable source of sunshine in an otherwise dark world. Tanaki, or Tani, my apologies. Tani has been summoned in order to have. I will be polite. She has not been given a reason for the summons. Needless to say, her grandfather wishes to speak with her, which means that her grandfather wishes to speak to her now, which means run, little cat, run.
Nakidori makes her way quickly down, not quickly, maybe a little rushed compared to usual, down the halls to the throne room of her grandfather, wondering what he could possibly want this time.
As you proceed step by step down into the deepest recesses of the palace proper, you see a number of eyes looking towards you, many of them red, hungry eyes. However, they stay where it is that they are sequestered in the shadows. They do not seem to pose any real threat. More so, they look at you with a veiled sense of interest. Until you eventually reach my apologies, until you eventually reach the door itself. In that moment, you see an individual standing with her hands on her hips, waiting for you. She looks at you with a vaguely impassive stare, and she simply says, "Hmm, late again, I see."
She ignores the red gazes of the things she passes, and upon reaching this new person outside of the door, gives her best polite smile and simply says, I am never late. I am where I need to be when I need to be there.
I see. That is an interesting perspective. So, what you're saying is that if you were anywhere else at a moment in time where you had deigned to stand, then you would in fact be in the correct place regardless of if it was correct or not.
Yes.
Much to learn, child, much to learn. However, I don't have time to teach, and the hour draws late. Your things have been packed. You're being sent to Kyoto.
Why Kyoto of all places?
That is not for me to tell you. Now then, shoulders back, stand up straight. Look at you, of course, standing straight. She is just being a petulant bitch.
She makes no move to alter her shoulders or anything about her appearance.
The woman simply nods her head slightly and steps to the side.
She enters the throne room.
The great black doors that appear to have been carved once again from the same living granite, the same basalt rock, slowly open on silent oiled hinges. Inside, you become immediately aware of the fact that jutting out from the center of the room, there is what essentially amounts to a footpath, a small, narrow bridge set against a deep pool of verdant, clear water that glistens in the torchlight above it. This entire room has been carved into an underground river that flows very slowly. Jutting from one end of the room, there is a great throne that appears to be made of cherry blossom colored marble, with two of the aforementioned trees that grow here despite the fact there is no light for them to grow. As you enter, the woman steps in behind you and she proceeds to fall to one knee, her head being kept downward cast as she looks towards the ground.
Tani will likewise bow to the throne and the presumably person upon the throne.
There we go. This individual is standing. He is not seated, but he is standing very calmly, pruning the cherry blossom tree to the left-hand side of his chair. He has in his hand a knife that appears to glint silver in the torchlight before the masked head ever so slightly turns to look at you, and he will simply raise a hand, intimating that you should stand.
She will rise when bidden to do so.
Ah, so wonderful to see you again, my dear.
It is ever the treat that I get to speak with you. What may I ask is the to what do I owe such honor this evening?
He will step down from where he is standing, and he steps physically onto the water, and the water bears his weight as he walks across it. You can see his robes that clearly cover his feet um, submerge ever so slightly into the water, going to their natural length, but the water bears his feet as if he himself could walk upon it, as if it were solid rock. But he will eventually walk to where the footpath begins and step up before he will say, "You go to Kyoto in order to see with your eyes the turning of the tide."
Very well. If that is your request, then I have no objection. I will gather my things and head there at your behest.
Hmm. He takes your hand in his own. For the record, you see the whiteness of his skin. It is unnaturally pallid, as in chalk white. And there are long black fingernails. But he takes your hand in his, and he wraps the cherry blossom trees the eve of the branch that he had been trimming, and he wraps it around your arm. And as he does so, he closes both of his palms around your wrist until when it is removed, rather than a branch of a tree, what hangs around your arm are a number of what look to be pale pink porcelain beads on a silver chain.
I thank you for this gift. It is rather lovely. I always no, never mind.
It is not necessarily for your vanity that I present you with this. It is for your sanctity.
She will stare at the pale pink beads a moment and nod thoughtfully.
Time makes an enemy of all man. What he builds will crumble. What he hopes for will turn to ash. And what he dreams of may become nightmares tomorrow. That is the curse of mortality, the curse of man and his impermanence.
Such wise words that I shall endeavor to commit to memory.
In Kyoto, events will soon transpire. Since I have been banished from the city, even though the previous lord who banished me no longer protects it, my return now would not be in my best interests. However, when what is going to occur, as I have foreseen, occurs, yes, we shall see what happens. You will carry this for me. He will reach into the fold of his kimono, and he will withdraw what looks to be a it looks to be made of jade. It is very, very beautiful. It is what looks to be a scroll case, maybe. It's a tube made of beautifully carved jade.
She will accept the beautifully carved scroll case with a slight nod of her head. Um, of course, I will carry this to Kyoto with me and be ever vigilant in your stead.
When you enter the city, you will lose the scroll or you will lose that gift that I have given you, he says, pointing to the case. I do not care where it goes, provided it stays within the city walls. Do you understand?
I do indeed understand.
Good. I have no doubt that you will not fail me.
She will lower her head slightly as she puts the case in her sleeve for safekeeping.
All of the arrangements have now been made. You will travel to Kyoto tomorrow evening at dusk. I will wish you success in your ventures, granddaughter.
Of course, I will prepare my things and I thank you for this opportunity.
Good. Good. With that, he will simply turn and walk back across the murky depths beneath his feet to his throne. He will give you a dismissive flick of the wrist, intimating that you can leave.
She will give a slight bow in appreciation, turn, and gracefully walk out of the throne room.
Excellent. I think that is a good place to call it. It only had to be very short. The next evening, you will all of your things will be packed, and you will move to your estate in Kyoto. Thank you, player, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This has been another scene in Kyoto by Night. Have a pleasant evening.